Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 30-Minute Gospel. My name is Chris, and I'll be your host as we open and study the Bible together. I'll be reading from the King James Version, but you can feel free to read whichever translation that best suits you. I would just recommend that you have a version that does not delete verses from God's holy word. Each video will be a biblical teaching of 30 minutes or less. My material is completely 100% free, so you can share these videos with family members, co-workers, friends, or anyone you know who either needs to hear the Word of God or wants to study in a casual setting. The gospel is free to all, so I will not accept any donations, gifts, or beg viewers for money. Please give to your local church or a Christian organization of your choosing. You can reach out to me with questions or comments at 30minutegospel@gmail.com, but please keep your message respectful and cordial. Please remember to also hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you enjoy the Christian content presented here. You can also follow me on Facebook at 30 Minute Gospel with Chris. Well, welcome again, everybody. We're going to start a new series. We are going to do an expository on Daniel chapter 2, which is Daniel chapter 2. If any of you know this, this is the Statue of Nations, okay? All right, this is the Statue of Nations, okay? So if you'll turn to me to Daniel, and we're going to kind of talk about this. We're going to read verses. We're going to talk about this. This may be a video or two that's going to take this, but we're going to read Daniel chapter 2 and go over this prophecy. If you know anything about the book of Daniel, Daniel was just kind of give a little bit of background on this. Is Daniel was brought when he was a teenager from Jerusalem to Babylon by King Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, when he did his raids on Israel. The first one was around, I think, 605 to 603 BC, somewhere in there. And then 586 BC, he went into Jerusalem, destroyed the temple, and then brought all the Jews back. Okay, and of course, the Bible depicts this in First Chronicles talks about it. The book of Jeremiah talks about it, and I think Second Kings talks about it. Yeah, so Second Kings, Second Chronicles, and Jeremiah all talk about the ransacking of Jerusalem and what happened there with Nebuchadnezzar. Daniel was a young man. He became a eunuch. Him with his friends Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Their names were Mishael and I can't remember all their names, but it will come to me. But Daniel, though, served the king. He served from Nebuchadnezzar all the way up to Cyrus. So he served basically all those Babylonian kings from from Nebuchadnezzar to Belshazzar. Then he served under um, uh, uh, who am I thinking? Darius, Xerxes. I'm sorry. Yeah, Darius and Cyrus. He lasted all the way up to Cyrus, and Cyrus let the Jews go around. I think it's like 512, 515 BC, somewhere in there. They had been in captivity for 70 years, and then he let them go in 515. So he lasted a long time. Daniel lived almost to 100 years old. And so the book of Daniel, though, is a book of prophecy as well. If you know anything, it's a sister book to the book of Revelation. Okay, which we just did a whole study on the end times. So we're going to be talking about Daniel chapter 2, the statue of nations. Okay, so that's what we'll be discussing. All right, so if you'll turn to me to Daniel chapter 2, it says this. We're going to read verses 1 through 13 first. Okay, Daniel chapter 2, it says, "And in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams, wherewith his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. Then the king commanded to call the magicians and the astrologers and the sorcerers and the Chaldeans for to shew the king his dream. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said unto them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac, O king, live forever. Tell thy servants the dream, and we will shew you the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, The thing is gone from me. If ye will not make known unto me the dream with the interpretation thereof, ye shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made a dunghill. But if ye shew the dream and the interpretation thereof, ye shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore shew me the dream and the interpretation thereof. They answered again and said, Let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will shew the interpretation of it. The king answered and said, I know of certainty that ye would gain the time, because ye see the thing is gone from me. But if ye will not make known unto me the dream, there is but one decree for you have prepared lying and corrupt words to speak before me till the time be changed. Therefore tell me the dream, and I will know that ye can shew me the interpretation thereof. The Chaldeans answered before the king and said, There is not a man upon the earth that can shew the king's matter. Therefore there is no king, lord, nor ruler that asks such things at any magician or astrologer or Chaldean. And it is a rare thing that the king requireth, and there is none other than can shew it before the king, except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh. For this cause the king was angry and very furious, and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. And the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain, and they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain. Okay, so King Nebuchadnezzar, first of all, let's give a little background on him. King Nebuchadnezzar lived from 642 to 562 BC. So he lived about 80 years. Okay, he lived about 80 years. He came to power in 605 BC, and he ruled there until his death. So he ruled for 43 years as king of Babylon. The capital city, of course, was Babylon. Babylon is located in Iraq. It's almost in a midpoint between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. If you know anything about it in Iraq, the Tigris and Euphrates rivers come together towards the Persian Gulf. And some people have even suggested that that's where the Garden of Eden may have been. We don't know. But the Tigris and Euphrates kind of split off like this. And what happens is Babylon's kind of like in between them as they split off into a wider area. Babylon is also known as the plain of Shinar. Okay, it's known as the plain of Shinar in Genesis in chapter oh gosh, what was that? Chapter 9, I think it is, or 10, with the Tower of Babel. Okay, the Tower of Babel that's why the city was called Babylon, because the Tower of Babel was built there. Okay, and supposedly the city was founded by Nimrod. Okay, so that's where he is. Okay, like I said, Nebuchadnezzar's capital was Babylon. He built his very famous Hanging Gardens in Babylon. The Hanging Gardens were one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. They were built for his wife. His wife was from Egypt or something, somewhere in Africa. His wife was from Africa, and he brought her to this kind of like desert region of Babylon. I mean, Babylon was okay, but it was kind of like she found it very depressing. She liked all of the plants and everything, and the trees and everything that were in her home country. And so Nebuchadnezzar built these hanging gardens. He called them hanging gardens because the plants hung over the side of the wall. Okay, and he built those hanging gardens for her, and he actually built a canal, essentially, or basically a tributary. They dug a tributary from the Euphrates River all the way to Babylon to water the gardens for his wife, and he did that for her to do that. Okay, he was the first person ever to call the Hebrews Jews. The name Jew, which comes from Judah, it comes from Nebuchadnezzar. He was the first to refer to the Hebrews as Jews. He built the very famous Ishtar Gate, which is in modern day Iraq. They've restored some of that, but that city will never be rebuilt. Okay, a lot of people. Um, One of the things we're going to kind of talk was kind of off topic a little bit, but one of the things that I tell everybody too is when they talk about mystery Babylon in the Book of Revelation, that's not referring to the city of Babylon, the actual city of Babylon. It's symbolic because the real city of Babylon, according to Isaiah, according to Ezekiel, um, and or no, is I think it's I know it's Isaiah. I think it's Jeremiah. Maybe it's Jeremiah. It might be Ezekiel too. I don't know. But according to them, all three those prophets through God through those prophets said that the city of Babylon would be destroyed and never be rebuilt. It would become a haunt for jackals, as it says in the book of Isaiah. And that's what you see today. They people Saddam Hussein tried to rebuild that place, and God stopped him. Okay, George Bush went into the Iraq in there in the Iraq War, and it stopped the rebuilding of Babylon because that city's not going to be rebuilt again. That's what God said. So it's just this laid waste town in the middle of the desert. Okay, so that's so that's where Babylon is, and that's what happened there. And in the center of Babylon was a ziggurat. It was the Tower of Babel was destroyed, but the ziggurat, they know where the ziggurat is. The ziggurat could have stood on the spot where the original tower was built because according to a lot of artist renditionings of it, um, it looks like a ziggurat. That's what they're trying to build. It was like this big tower kind of thing going up. Okay. Um, Initially, he ransacks Jerusalem in 605 BC. Daniel is sent to Babylon to be a eunuch for the king. As I said, Daniel chapter 1 talks about this. And then in 587 BC, he comes into Jerusalem and he completely destroys the temple and takes out. There's debate about if he took out the Ark of the Covenant. If he took that, we don't know. We all know that the Ark was found by Indiana Jones, right? We all know that. It was found by Indiana Jones. Now it's sitting in a government warehouse in a crate somewhere. Area 51, I think, was the third movie or fourth movie said. Okay, so what's going on in this chapter is Daniel or what happened in these verses is or Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. He had forgotten his dream. His dream disturbed him, so he called all of his magicians and astrologers and all these people and asked them basically, tell me the dream and its interpretation. But the astrologers were like, no, no, king, tell us the dream and we'll tell you the interpretation. And Nebuchadnezzar said, no, if you're basically said, he was calling their bluff. If you are really who you say you are, you'll be able to tell me what my dream is. And you see, that sort of thing is something you can always tell about somebody who can see into the future, who can, like these psychics and stuff like that. All you have to do is just go in there and say, what's my name? When's my date of birth? If they can't answer that question, then how can you trust anything else they say? And so basically he was calling their bluff and saying, if you're really astrologers, you'll be able to tell me. If you're really these magician people, you should be able to, psychics, you should be able to tell me what my dream is and interpret it. And he said, if you don't, I'm going to destroy your houses because I know you're lying to me. And they were like, no, you have to tell us the dream. We can't just do that. And he's just like, you're buying time. Stop doing it. And they said, we can't do this. And he said, okay, all right, then you're going to be killed. And then he calls in Daniel and Daniel's friends to read that. Okay, so now we're going to read chapters 14 through verses 14 through 23. Okay, it says, then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which was gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, why is the decree so hasty from the king? Then Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. Then Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would give him time, and that he would shew the king the interpretation. Then Daniel went to his house and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, that's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, his companions. that they would desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning this secret, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said, Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changeth the times and the seasons. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. He revealeth the deep and secret things. He knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. I thank thee and praise thee, O thy God of my fathers, who hast given me wisdom and might, and hast made known unto me now what we desired of thee, for thou hast now made known unto us the king's matter. Okay? So basically what happened was Daniel was told Arioch, and he basically told Nebuchadnezzar that give me time and God from heaven will show what the dream is. Okay, he tells the king that he will get the interpretation from God. This is very similar to what happened with Joseph, with the Pharaoh in Egypt when he had the dream of the 5 fat cows and the 5 skinny cows, as well as with his dream he said, God will give me the interpretation. And you can see that that's what he says if you go to the book of Deuteronomy. Now this is not Joseph talking, but this is Moses speaking. 29:29 is very famous. It says, The secret things belong unto the Lord our God, but those things which are revealed belong unto us and to our children forever and ever, that we may do all the words of this law. So God holds some secret things, but he reveals things. And that's what Daniel was telling Nebuchadnezzar. And he was praising God because God did give Daniel the interpretation and told him what the dream was and what the interpretation is. And we're going to talk about this um, in the next verses, 24 through 30. It says this. It says, Therefore Daniel went in unto Arioch, whom the king had ordained to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus unto him, Destroy not the wise men of Babylon. Bring me in before the king, and I will shew unto the king the interpretation. Then Arioch brought in Daniel before the king in haste, and said thus unto him, I have found a man of the captives of Judah that will make known unto the king the interpretation. The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, Art thou able to make known unto me the dream which I have seen, and the interpretation thereof? Daniel answered in the presence of the king, and said, The secret which the king hath demanded cannot the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, the soothsayers show unto the king. But there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets, and maketh known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. Thy dream and the visions of thy head upon thy bed are these. As for thee, O king, thy thoughts came into thy mind upon thy bed, what should come to pass hereafter. And he that revealeth secrets maketh known to thee what shall come to pass. But as for me, this secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have more than any living, but for their sakes that shall make known the interpretation to the king, and thou mightest know the thoughts of thy heart. Okay, so once again, Daniel explains to Nebuchadnezzar that God interprets the dream for him, and not he who interprets it. Okay, so Nebuchadnezzar is saying, or Daniel's basically saying, it's not me that's interpreting this dream, king. It is God Almighty, the God in heaven. So basically, he's trying to display God to him. So Nebuchadnezzar has an idea of who the real God is. Okay, so that's what he has to do, that's what he's doing here. Okay, now we're going to read verses 31 through 36, but I don't know. I'm just going to kind of briefly go over it, and then we'll talk about it and go in more detail in the next video. Okay. Verses 31 through 36 says this: Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. The image head was of fine gold, his breast and arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth. This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Okay? So basically, what Daniel told him was, your dream was you saw this huge statue, okay, of a man, a warrior, a king of some sort, okay? And the image that he saw was, there was the statue had a head of gold. Okay? His head was made of gold. The statue's chest and arms were made of silver. Okay? The belly and the thighs were of brass. The legs were legs of iron, and the feet of iron mixed with clay. Okay? Now, what this all is entailing is these different images of metals, from gold all the way down to iron, are representative of the nations that are going to be influencing and be basically um, influence. I guess influence is the best word. Influencing the nation of Israel. Okay, because if you know anything about prophecy in the Bible, okay, prophecy in the Bible almost always deals with the nation of Israel. All of it. Daniel's 70 weeks prophecy, it's all about Israel. Even the end times, the book of Revelation, most of that, or a lot of that, is dealing with what's going to happen to the nation of Israel during the end times. It doesn't deal with the church. A lot of prophecies that were talked about, Abraham was told his descendants will go down to Egypt for 400 years and be slaves down there, but then God would deliver them. The promised Messiah, all the different prophecies, it was dealing with the Messiah who was going to come through the nation of Israel. The prophecies of being destroyed by the Babylonians, that was dealing with with Israel. There are a few that like God talked about the destruction of Nineveh and destruction of these cities, but usually the destruction of the cities that he describes are dealing with the way they dealt with Israel. The destruction of Babylon. Why did God destroy that city? It was the way his prophecy, it was the way that they treated the nation of Israel. The destruction of Edom in Obadiah basically was dealing with the fact of the way the Edomites treated the Israelites during those years where they were neighbors. Usually that's what goes on with these destructions and some of these other prophecies that have to deal. The city of Nineveh was destroyed, and the prophecies came about because of how they treated the nation of Israel. Okay, so the book of Nahum talks about that. So you'll see a lot of that. So these nations are going to be the nations who are going to have heavy influence over that. We're going to talk about that. The head of gold in the next video, that's the Babylonians. The chest of iron is the Medes and the Persians. The belly and thighs of brass, that's the Greeks. The legs of iron, that is the legs of iron is the Roman Empire. And then the feet of part iron, part clay, that is Europe. Okay, that is the what I believe is the rebirth of the Holy Roman Empire, or the European Union, of what we call that today. Okay, and so you're going to see these nations, and we will talk about all these individual nations, how what happened with them, when did they fall, these sorts of things, and kind of interpret this entire chapter and this statue. Okay, all right, so we'll just leave it there for this video. I just want to thank you all for tuning in, and remember, just as Theodore Roosevelt once said, a thorough knowledge of the Bible is worth more than a college education. God bless you all.